not safe in the water either. We live in a water state. Lots of people dive, snorkel, fish, go in the water, spearfish, live in the Bahamas for a while, did bat work there. Everybody was out there on the reef spear fishing. Let me tell you something. Some of the nastiest animals and bloodsuckers in the world are in the oceans. And they're not very nice about it. They're quite aggressive. We have fish, and of course octopus, and we have southern cephalopods as well as cone snails and lamprey eels and several other types of fish that are actually going to, or eels that are going to engage in eating blood from you or another host animal. So there is a lot of blood eating going on out there in the natural world, and it isn't just this poor little vampire bat. So, once again, vampire bat, he's kind of cute when you look at him. He's got a funny little nose. It makes him look a little bit comical. Vampire bats only occur in Central America. One more time. Do we have bats in Florida that are vampires? No. Is Florida part of Central America? No. Is Florida part of North America?
Yes.
Yes. People in South Florida say it's not, but it is. We're still still in North America. Sorry guys, we're not, down in the tropics just yet. We will get there, but not yet. This is definitely a species that is isolated in Central American jungles. Is the answer. So, next myth. Bats are going to get entangled in my hair. I hear this a dozen times a year minimally from lots and lots of people from all over the world. I have people who call me from Europe and Australia and New Zealand who say, I got the bat in my house and it's going to get in my hair. I'm like, how did you get my number? How did you call Florida from New Zealand? I don't get it. In the world of today's economy and world markets and cell phones that you can call anyone in the world who's on the moon, I guess it really isn't that difficult anymore. I get lots of calls about this, and the truth is bats do not get entangled in people's hair, ever, for any reason. I've been doing this work a long time, and I've never met anybody yet who can tell me that they've actually had a bat caught in their hair. Now everybody knows somebody who has an aunt who has a cousin whose nephew down the street's grandmother had a bat in her hair 48 years ago, but nobody can substantiate those urban myths. All right? And so the idea is it's another myth. Bats do not have any interest in us or our hair. I have real wild wacky hair when it's not like tied up in like big knots. And I've always had real wild wacky hair. You know, Bette Midler in, what was the one with the witches? Hocus Pocus. I got her hair. That's the hair I got for real in real life. And I've been in bat caves and working with bats for all my life, and I've never had a bat get caught in my hair, ever. So it's just not going to happen. Now, I believe, honestly, that the reason this myth got started is because we do attract insects. And when we attract insects over our head, bats will come and eat those bugs. The problem is we see the bat, we don't see the bugs. And we think, it's after me. The truth is, it's not about us. It's about the bugs that are over our head. Let's face it, ladies, and men too nowadays, you want to smell like anything but a human being. You put on flowered potions and lotions and powders and perfumes and hairsprays and hair stuff and everything. I can't tell you, I go to the store all the time and I see everybody that picks up a bottle of shampoo, it's the first thing they do. Take off the lid and sniff it. Fabric softener, same way. They want to smell good. And that's lovely, except you're going to also smell good to all those bugs outside. You're going to smell just like a flower, and many insects are going to be attracted to you. So my advice to you about that is smell good if you want, but be aware that you're going to be a bug insect. Wear lots of clothes. Wear a couple layers of clothing. Definitely will attract insects. Once the insects have found you and they create a column of bugs over your head, the bats will come and rescue you. Don't swing and scream and holler and swing at the bats. They're only after the insects. All right? Next myth, all bats have rabies. Wrongo. Not true. The fact is that less than 1/2% of bats in this world will ever contract rabies. And they have a very long lifespan. This tiny little bat right here is a little eastern myotis. And this little eastern myotis is going to live 17 years. And it only has a 0.5% of chance in 17 years of ever contracting rabies. Now, bats don't carry the rabies virus around with them in some kind of a dormant state. They're not carriers like typhoid Mary. Okay? They're not going to go from place to place and spread rabies like fairy dust. That just doesn't happen. Rabies can only be transmitted through a bite, and it can only be transmitted if the animal that bites the host is shedding the virus in the saliva. Because it's a central nervous system disease, you cannot get rabies from blood, urine, or feces. You actually, if you wanted to, could actually eat the meat of an animal that died from rabies and not get the disease. I don't know why you do that, but you could. The only way you can get it is through the salivary glands, and that's where the virus sheds, and that's why these animals, when most mammals contract the disease, they actually become aggressive and bite. That's how it's spread from animal to animal. With bats, what we see is if an animal gets bitten by a rabid animal, 90% of the time the bat dies from the initial attack because these are small little mammals. And if a cat or a dog or a raccoon or a fox or whatever bites this animal and tries to transmits the disease, this little bat's going to die from the injuries before it ever develops rabies. Okay, so we don't see a lot of it. We also know that when a bat does contract the disease, they become paralyzed, unable to fly, unable to move, unable to cling to their roost. Their back legs become paralyzed and their feet let go of the roost and they drop to the ground where they lie motionless and die, generally within 24 hours. The problem with that is they've now exposed themselves unintentionally to you, your dogs, your kids, your cats, whoever wants to walk along, and you see an animal laying on the ground and you can walk up to it and you think you can pick it up and hold it, and if it bites you, you have just gotten a transmission. But it wasn't the bat chasing you. It was you doing something you shouldn't have been doing, which was what? Handling an animal you do not know. No one, anyone, should be ever handling, including kids. Make sure you tell your children this every single day, because it's going to take that for them to get it through their head. And then surprisingly, some of the people in our state who have handled most animals and gotten bitten and had to have the rabies series have been 45-year-old adults. They know better, but they still did it. Resist the urge to handle an animal that you don't know. If it's not your dog or your cat, you shouldn't be handling it. If it needs immediate medical attention, contain the animal the best way you can, protect your hands, and call somebody that's a professional for help. Call animal control. Call the police department. Call me if it's a bat. Don't call me if it's a cat, but call me if it's a bat. I'll come pick that little sucker up and we'll get it some help, or we will euthanize it if we realize that it is ill, and we will put it out of its misery. Because it's a painful way to die. And it's a painful way for people to die, so keep that in mind. Protect yourself and your health from all wildlife bites, and just don't handle wildlife, and you will never have a problem. Okay? So, rabies is not a big risk. So what is a bat exactly? Lots of people ask me, well, what is it? Is it a bird? An animal? What is a bat? So here's what a bat is. It's a flying mammal. Flying mammals that use their hands as substructures for their wing membrane. The wing membrane itself is a double layer of skin that's stretched over the top of the fingers. You can see in this picture, you can see the finger bones and the thumb. They actually have a thumb and 4 fingers that make up the structure of the wing. So for this reason, we call bats chiroptera, which is a Greek phrase that means hand wing. Makes perfect sense. As you look at some of these photos, take a look at that wing arrangement. You're going to see very clear hand arrangements in here. So they are mammals, and they are the only mammal that can actually fly. They are also mammals that give birth to living babies and feed their pups milk. Baby bats are called pups. And here we have a picture of a fruit bat that actually has a pup hanging onto her abdomen, on her tummy. She's out hunting, and the pup has gone with her, and the pup is actually nursing as the mother is flying around. We see some female species of bats carrying around as many as 3 pups while they're hunting, all hanging onto the mom on the underneath. It's tough to be a bat mom. This is a process, however, that they have to engage in order to teach the pup to fly, because bats are mammals. They don't have wings with feathers. They can't get airborne like birds do, and they're not instinctive flyers. Mother bats must teach their young how to fly. And for 60 million years, as far back in the fossil record as we've gone, where we have fossilized bats with wings, we know that every single pup that's been born from that time forward has been taught to fly by its mommy. All right, so this is a very important relationship, the mother-pup relationship. If it's interrupted, the mother is killed, or the pup is somehow separated from the mother and becomes orphaned, chances are excellent the pup will survive if it gets the care that it needs from one of us, but it will probably never learn to fly. It's just that easy. Mommy must teach. 70% of the 1,400 species are actually insectivores, like we see in the lower right corner there. That's one of our southeastern myotis. It's a species we have here in Florida, one after a tiger moth. Almost all the bats in the world eat bugs, and that's a very good thing for us, because goodness knows there's plenty of bugs out there, aren't there? Boy, We wouldn't actually be able to live on this planet if it weren't for insect eaters. Some bats are pollinators. About 300 species or so are actual pollinators or fruit bats. Some pollinate the plant in the springtime when there's flowers, like this one up here, and then they come back 6 months later and eat the fruit that was produced by their own pollination service. So there's a cycle going on here. There are bats that also eat fruit and spread seeds around, like this Gambian bat from Africa. This bat has an allspice berry in his mouth, and they are really, really important for the allspice trade. It is one of the most lucrative trades in the African continent for export. And these bats are critical to spreading around more seeds and producing more allspice. So very important animals for feeding people as well as economically. Why would you care about it? I know, yeah, okay, all right, okay. So I'm a bat person. I get excited. Well, why should you care, right? Well, I got a couple reasons. You should care if you eat food. Okay, everyone here eats. We all like to eat. We all have our favorite foods. And I can guarantee you that at least 50% of your favorite foods are brought to you by bats. Fruits and vegetables, nuts, spices of all kinds, even chewing gum. Can you believe that? They don't go out there and make little chewing gum, but they do pollinate the chiclet tree, which is the source of the pitch that goes into chewing gum. Hence the name chiclets. The original gum was from the chiclet tree. So a lot of these are South American or Central American or Asian fruits and vegetables, but we, in an economy that is worldwide now, eat a lot of tropical fruits every day, don't we? Bananas and mangoes and papayas and things that don't actually grow here in North America, but we're lucky enough to live at a time where we can get those kinds of wonderful foods. And many of those are pollinated and propagated by bats. Think about it this way. If you get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, you owe that to a bat. Bats pollinate shade-grown coffee. If you eat chocolate after lunch for a little pick-me-up or in the evening after dinner, you owe that to bats. Children that eat chocolate, bats are the ones that are propagating that coca plant and helping to produce those big pods with all those seeds that produce chocolate. We have lots and lots of different kinds of fruits and vegetables, but you know, up there I want to bring your attention to the bottle of tequila, which some of you I'm sure immediately noticed, right? I do. If you imbibe in drinking a little tequila once in a while, either with a margarita or a shot or whatever, a mojito, whatever it is you drink, you owe that to bats, because the actual blue agave cactus, which is the source of tequila, is pollinated only by a bat. There is one species of bat in the whole world that pollinates blue agave, one kind of bat. And I don't want to lose that bat. Margarita with vodka just isn't the same. There's even more. They bring us even more things. You know, medical research that's been done with bats, especially with vampire bats on their saliva, have been able to, doctors have been able to isolate and then synthesize in laboratory conditions the very enzyme in the saliva that caused the anticoagulating factor. It's a very controlled, very gentle anticoagulant. And putting that in these medications, the new generation of anticoagulants and blood thinners are due to vampire bats. Cardiac drugs, there's over 80 different kinds of drugs right now that are derived from bats and bat saliva that we owe a lot of our lives to. You know, many years ago it was warfarin, and that was it. It was warfarin, which is a harsh, horribly difficult drug to take. It's got a lot of dietary restrictions and a lot of very severe side effects, and lots of people died from the drug rather than the disease they were trying to treat. That is not the way it is today. It's much improved now thanks to bats and the research that's been done on these drugs. So, excellent. Florida's bats we'll talk about now, 13 native species.